Hello everyone, it's time for another House of PMO session. This one's a little bit different this week. We have decided to combine a couple of things really, and due to a popular request is that I think we take for granted sometimes that that people are aware House of PMO and what it is it's doing. There's a lot of things in the background. If you're a free member, they're not quite sure whether to become a full member, all this kind of stuff. So this session today is it's kind of combining PMOs today. So these is essentially what we've put together is a lot of what PMOs are either thinking about, what they're focusing on, what they're doing, what's become more popular in recent times, and just to really bring you up to date. We do a lot of obviously different kinds of events and sometimes deep dive into certain areas around PMOs and that kind of thing. So this was really just a high level to give you to bring you up to speed really, and give you some insights that you might want to chat about, which we know that we use the meeting chat quite a lot on our sessions. So please do feel free to drop in any kind of questions, thoughts, opinions, anything like that, and Eileen will be able to keep an eye on it, as well as myself. It's just sometimes I get a bit sidetracked and there's a bit to get through. So hopefully it'll take about 45 minutes, so you've still got a bit of time to enjoy your lunch and whatnot, and please do feel free, grab your sandwich, carry on, crack on. So what we're going to be doing today then is looking at a little bit more about obviously what House of PMO is, but like I said, sharing some of the things that are really prominent right now in the PMO community. It'd be really good to hear what you think as well, whether you're doing this, whether it's maybe the next thing on the list for your PMO, or actually we're nowhere near that at the moment. So hopefully I'll give you a few insights. So let's crack on with House of PMO. So hopefully you found us today. Are you new? Is this the first time you've joined us, or are you an old? I can't say old. Are you an existing member that's been around for a while, or what are you? Let us know. House of PMO essentially set up for professional membership for people that are working in PMOs. Nothing exists of its kind. It's something that Eileen and I had wanted to do for many years, having worked in this profession ourselves, and being in that position where we're always playing second fiddle to project management, and there's obviously a lot going on around PMO. We wanted to be able to bring everything that we've been doing over the last 20 years into one place, which will allow people to have a space for themselves that are in this PMO, this job we call PMO, this profession we call PMO. So we decided after trying to get what we're going to call it, it's the House of PMO. It allows us to riff on things like house has many rooms, different people who are in it. It allows us to play on that a little, but essentially it is about a place where PMO professionals can help develop themselves, support the development of others, and obviously contribute to the development of the PMO profession. It's exciting times for PMO. We're not as established as project management. We're a subsection of it, obviously, but there's still a lot to do. There's still a lot of things around PMO that are not defined, that there is no path that's been trodden. And that makes it exciting for people that are working within this role already, but also enticing for people that are thinking about getting into project management and recognizing that actually there is a different route. You do not have to become a project manager. So, and we have a bigger mission, which is to establish a PMO profession globally and all that entails, which, yes, we've always got to have some, a big statement, but, frankly, from the time of, I would say, where the pandemic hit us, that yes, we did naturally start to go a little bit more global, because if you cast your minds back for people that were around then, a lot of what we were doing is in person. We were meeting up together. It was lovely. We were chatting to people, providing lectures and meetups and all this kind of stuff. But actually the pandemic, in a lot of good ways, allowed us to do other things that allowed us to branch out a little bit more and do things a little bit differently. So yes, it is that one eye on, obviously there's PMO professionals around the world, and we're really interested in everyone developing and how they're doing that. So how do we do it? It is about a community of practice on a large scale. You won't be, you should be familiar already with that term, community of practice. many PMO people are already responsible for building those kind of things internally within their organizations. But this is about a community of practice around PMOs. So it's that network and opportunity, as well as having that platform to talk and to exchange ideas. But not only just a talking shop, it is about being able to start with the talk, in the discussion, the debate, and then to actually do stuff to solve some of the riddles we have, some of the challenges that we have. And one of the ways that we start to do that is by expanding the PMO body of knowledge. Sadly has been lacking for many years, but we wanted to start to do things where the wider PMO community, whether they'd heard of us or not, that will be able to pick up and utilize some of the things that we're producing, which is, I think the main one that we keep banging on about is the PMO competency framework. But it has made a big difference to a lot of organizations today. This is, yes, for individuals, but it's also organizations that have really latched on to the fact that there is something that allows people within their organization that are specializing around the PMO space to actually, start to do some development specifically around their roles. The other things, of course, is that we're always trying to, publish new works. Just the small things we do around inside PMOs, but they make a big difference. We're looking at subjects that are really having an impact on PMOs today. And of course, what naturally comes with any kind of professional body is around the standards and certifications, which is where we focused. Again, during lockdown, it allowed us to plow on and produce the first 4 certifications, which focus very much and align to the competency framework. And again, very role specific, but also very practical around the roles, rather than it being about the setup of PMOs, which I think most of us are going to appreciate. P3O very much around that, whereas these were very much about the role that you're doing and the competencies that you need to do your job well. So that's just the blurb. That's the advertisement, if you like. We don't do it enough, but I think sometimes it's just worth, remember there are, this is what it is that we're trying to do, and all of you are really important in the aims of what we're trying to achieve, because I do totally believe that it is about the people that are doing the role, that are really shaping it as to what will come for the next generation. So let's have a look at some of the first one really around what PMOs today are focusing on, and that is about the context. I think many of us get asked about, what is a PMO? What do you do? All of those kind of things. And I think here at the House of PMO, we obviously always get those kind of conversations, but it kind of landed with us very recently, and it's about the fact of the term PMO. But from a House of PMO, we actually see it more as a collective noun rather than an acronym. So it can be about any individual, team or department, but is supporting projects, programs, portfolio delivery within an organization. It doesn't, in lots of ways, it doesn't matter if we're a project office, a program office, portfolio office, or a centre of excellence. It's what we're doing that counts, and we're using PMO as a collective noun. One of the things that we will be focusing on later on this year is trying to look at that wider question about what is a PMO, very much because we recognise that there's a lot of senior executives and stakeholders that we are working with day in, day out, that have certain views or certain thoughts about PMO. And it is about time that we actually, said that this is what a PMO is. So every person working in PMO around the world is about, is able to, clearly articulate to people that don't work in project management and don't understand what PMO is, and don't understand and appreciate that the support that is needed in order for change to be delivered. And I think that's the next stage where we need to be getting to is, what is it that senior executives really need to understand in the terms that they, obviously understand and appreciate as well. The thing is about PMOs, of course, is that, and I shared this slide in a session the other day, is that we have a lot of different avenues to explore. And this picture is something that we knocked together just to try and demonstrate that there are many different paths, there's many different threads to it, there's many different parts to your role. You could be sitting next to somebody right now in our virtual room that could be looking at this and saying, I do X, Y, and Z on there, whereas you could be looking at it and saying, you know what, I've never even thought about doing that. That's how wonderful and diverse and different PMO roles can be from organization to organization. And even, you know, obviously within PMOs itself, the different roles that people are doing, the different specialisms that they choose to do, the levels that they're working at. So a lot of different avenues to explore, which means that for PMOs today, there is no one thing that will override and say every PMO at the moment is doing X, because that is not the case. But we'll show you what are some of the things that people are talking about. Just flipping back to the PMO at the moment in terms of the House of PMO, for any of you that's not, you know, that is maybe joining us late to the party, House of PMO has actually been going since 2013 in a previous kind of guise, which was something called PMO Flash Mob. The whole idea of these is that I think one of the things that we recognize about PMOs today is that there are a lot of questions that don't have answers. And yes, there are certain influencers and people that put themselves up as experts saying that they have the answers to a lot of this stuff. But I think actually we all recognize, and what we've just said is that PMOs do differ from organizations to organization. There is not one answer that will always solve every single particular challenge that's put in front of us, which is why we brought people together, you know, to understand from their perspectives, or what is, you know, how are you tackling these particular issues and these challenges? That's what we're doing that could be slightly different to a lot of things that are out there, is that we're not standing up here and saying these are the right answers. What we're doing is taking a lot of the insights from the community, people that have been doing this in PMOs that's both small and large, different industry sectors, and giving that information to you so you can then extrapolate and, you know, read that, understand that, you know, take that back into your organization and work out what your track might be on some of the challenge areas as well. And this last one, that's this very recent kind of face-to-face thing we've done, is PMOs getting into coming in together to tackle one of the big stories at the moment, which is all around this futuristic type stuff of project data analytics, AI. Perhaps not as futuristic as you think, but I will touch on that one in a little bit. But this, again, is just about bringing people together that are learning together, but also there's nothing better than getting a group of PMO people together because they ask brilliant questions of each other, you know, and that's what it's all about. So first on one of the latest things that, you know, we're seeing, that we're talking about, that we're, you know, listening to people, is the latest Inside PMO report, which you can go and get off the website right now. If you go onto the website and look under publications, you'll see Inside PMO. And this is the latest one. It got launched at the conference last month. And this is our way of starting to get to this point where we can talk about PMO at the top table, but we can get our senior execs and senior stakeholders understanding about what PMOs can do, what they're capable of, what they already do, and what they can do in the future. It was about being able to understand whether PMO could ever be seen as a business function, like a finance department or HR. If you think about what we're in the business of change, we're in the change side of that organization. Who but the PMO is providing that kind of ecosystem, the environments, the tools, the processes? Who else other than the PMO is providing that kind of business support type activity that you would find in HR, in finance? Who's doing it for the change part of our organizations? That's what the report was all about. So there's some interesting thinking there from people that are already starting to work at that kind of level where, you know, are we talking, you know, enterprise PMOs? Are we talking portfolio? What are we talking about here? And actually you can jump into this and just hopefully give you a different perspective on where PMOs are in some organizations today and where potentially yours might be going in the future. So you can see here that the out of that report came something called the integrated PMOs. I know Eileen's on this session. I know she wants to come off mute in a second, just to tell us a little bit more about the integrated PMO. But we hear it more and more because we're finding that obviously in organizations where there are change happening at the moment, you're having PMOs all over the place. And actually there is a better way. Eileen, integrated PMOs, that's your little, your pet at the moment?
Yes, this whole kind of concept of an integrated PMO model, we have lots of PMOs and organizations who are doing a really good job at kind of providing for their customers, but they're potentially aware of other PMOs across the organization, but there isn't anybody who has a holistic view that says, in an organization as a whole, how best can we arrange ourselves, and not just the people, but in terms of the services that we provide. So providing that holistic integrated PMO model allows you to be more effective in the delivery of services across the organization. So we really kind of, we need to see a lot more of that. And as we've said, again, some of the conversation that was based around the report is, as we're seeing more and more PMO directors or managers fulfilling the role of a PMO director, they're getting the opportunity to do an intelligent design for PMO.
Okay, thank you. And if you're not aware of the Inside PMOs report, you've been missing out. These are the insights that come from PMO managers that are sitting around the table talking about a particular theme, sharing their insights into how they're doing some of this stuff. This is really interesting because it shows you where some of our challenge areas have been over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, because we do one once a year, and you can go and have a look at all of those. They're available on the website. So PMOs today, what else is happening is, again, you might have heard us banging on about the PMO service catalogue, but actually this is about the fact that more and more PMOs are getting switched onto this idea that actually having a service-based approach not only benefits the people that work within the PMO itself, but obviously the organisation. It's that ability to be able to quite clearly demonstrate what it is that the PMO can do and what it's there to do, the kind of services that it can offer, but it also allows your organisation to be able to pick and choose if that's the way that they want to do that. But also the PMO service catalogue gives you that kind of insight and help in terms of, here are the services and here are we might be measuring the effectiveness of those services, what goes into those services, what people need skill-wise in order to be able to deliver them, and so on. It's really made a big difference to have this switch in focus of, yes, the PMO is here to do X, Y, and Z. What we've found over the years is that the setup of PMOs done by certain, PMO managers or people that, that kind of expertise, go into a new organization and set up a PMO just how they've been setting them up before for other organizations. There's been going on and on and on for a number of years. And actually what we, over the years, you find that, not one setup is perfect for every organization. How could it be? Every organization is different. All the projects are different approaches are necessary. The service-based approach has allowed people to think differently about how PMOs get set up in the first place and what to focus on and what is the most important service that needs to go first and how do we improve on those services before bringing in new services. So it's been a completely different approach than if you were working in PMOs at the beginning of 2000s into what it's like now. Completely different kind of approach, and one that has really started to pay dividends. Well, people that you might not be already familiar with, but there's always been this P3O talk about functions and services, or services and functions. I think sometimes we forget that the 2008 was, I think, when P3O first came out, refreshed in 2013. So still quite, quite an old piece of work now. You think about it, it's over a decade since the last time. But actually, we don't really talk much about, because that's one of the best things about P3O, in the fact it introduced us to that whole concept of the services and the functions. And again, you can see that how that starts to break down. And from PMO Flash Mob a number of years back, this is before the service catalogue came along, we were thinking, what is it? How do we break it down? And talking to people about how they were doing it. And again, here's some simple questions that if you're not currently thinking in a service-based way in your PMO, this is how we tackled it on one night, which was to get people in the pub of all places, gave them each one of these things and talked about particular services and got them to think about some of the things that they're doing and how it can be more service-based. And if you look at what's on the service catalogue today, it's all those common areas that we know and love. But, isn't it useful to be able to understand but it's behind these things, what kind of services make up PMO development? What kind of services will I see around knowledge management? It's a book that has really changed the way that people have been able to tackle some of these things that are, it's the generic parts of the PMO space, which is, you know, what are we here to do? Here's a service we're offering. Here's some details around that service, so everybody knows what they're getting. Here's how we know it's successful. You know, it's not rocket science, but it's taken us a number of years to get to that point. And there'll be more happening around the service catalogue as well, because many of you might appreciate that and are already aware that we've just kicked off a project around the next update to the PMO service catalogue. Eileen, sorry to bring you off mute again. I've not told you this, but you're right in the middle of this project and kicking it off. So anything you want to share?
I have to say, when you say kind of kicking in the middle of it, we're really just kind of at the starting point. So as you saw by the title of the book, it was written by a good friend of the House of PMO, Stuart Dixon, and really it was kind of his view of the world. And to be fair, Stuart's got several decades of experience in PMO, so it's a really good kind of coverage. And we wanted, a bit like the PMO competency framework, to make it a session by the community for the community. So what we're doing is we're taking Stuart's work as a starting point, and we're saying, well, actually now we recognise that there's potentially things that other organisations do, and we might have some other entries that we put in the service catalogue. So we're going to have a community book like the PMO competency framework, rather than Stuart's book. But Stuart's book has really been the catalyst for that, and will provide the starting point for that project. So we're hoping to have the kick-off meeting last week in July for those people who volunteered. If you've still got time to volunteer, believe me, there's plenty of work to be done over the next year or so. And you can find that at the houseofpmo.com, and I'll drop the link into the chat.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. So we're finding a balance between telling you about PMOs today and also, you know, a little bit about House of PMO. For many people that are not aware, obviously everything that we do goes into our members area, goes into our members library, and that is literally every single session that we do. The interesting thing about this is that what we've found over the years is that there's, you know, we know there's a lot to explore, there's a lot to develop on, there's a lot to learn around PMO, the PMO space. You saw those different avenues that you could go down. The problem is with a lot of this is that there's no training course to cover everything. You know, I think Eileen and I had talked about this before. You're probably looking at a 2-year university course, which, you know, we probably just about start to cover some of the ins and outs of what you need to know. But we know that a little can go a long way in terms of giving you pieces of knowledge that allow you to read wider, or just to listen to a video that takes an hour, and to give you that kind of insight, and just that little bit that you need in order to be able to move on and then to start to use it in your role or within your organization. And there is a lot there. Like I said, we've been doing since 2013. There's a lot of stuff, and we're forever, you know, any new areas that we're getting into, you know, we're there all the time. We're scanning what's coming down on the horizon, as well as looking at some of the basics, which we'll talk about in a second. So back onto PMOs today then. So obviously the other aspect is, yes, it's kind of, you know, it's banging on about this PMO competency framework, but it's been a massive difference to the whole PMO capability conversation. Being skilled and experienced and knowledgeable in what it is you're doing. The way that the role has been changing for PMO over time is because people have become more experienced in it, more knowledgeable, more skilled. They're building up those behavioral skills, those leadership skills, those managerial skills that go with that. But, you know, before, there's never been a way where the PMO has come out of a shadow from the from the project manager. The project managers have always been able to do their assessments. Their self-assessment from APM has been around for years. I mean, it's you know, well over, is it probably 20 years, something like that. We are only just, you know, touching the surface here with what we're going to be doing around the PMO competency framework. But for a lot of people at that PMO team level and that individual level is making a real difference, even to the point of where you're thinking about bringing in new people into the team. There's role profiles there. You've been able to share those with HR departments. So you've been able to, you know, educate some of your stakeholders within your business as to what you're really looking for when it comes to PMO people. Clear definitions on some of the roles that you know, some of the things that you, tasks and activities you're carrying out. It's all in this book, and it has made a big difference into the way that PMO people within the organization are now being developed just as well as some of the other roles, like technical people, the project managers and so on. So it has made a big difference. And for people that are not aware of it, these are some of the core competencies. These are the core competencies that are covered in that competency framework. But not only is it allowing people to do an assessment, it's giving them a standard on which, looking at the way that your expectations around things like, well, if I'm getting into reporting, insights and analysis, I'm a project administrator, what should I be expected to be doing in this area? Same if I'm an analyst and I'm suddenly now being promoted from working at project level to now working at a portfolio level. What's the expectation on me? What should I be doing around the reporting, insights and analysis? How does my job change? So it's just a lot of things like that that are kind of become secondary to people think it's just about a self-assessment. Actually, it's doing a lot more about that, a lot more than that in terms of being able to put down, this is what people in PMOs today are doing. This was created by people, just like we're doing with the service catalogue. It's a voluntary project from people that are working in the role. That's exactly how we did it with the competency framework as well. It came from the people that are doing the job. And the interesting thing is, again, which we continuously are doing, is looking at those core competency areas, plus the knowledge, skills and behaviours, and those inform the kind of events and sessions that we're doing in order to be able to help you as you do your development through your PMO profession, through your role. So a lot of this stuff we take as being like, okay, so kind of thinking about the autumn schedule and starting to plan that right now. We know that we've got some core competencies that we want to be able to get into, but we also know that from related to that are the knowledge, skills and behaviour areas. So it really is informing the way that we can bring bits of learning and bits of education to you. Obviously, the other thing that we talked about is that we, as a profession and a professional body, it makes a big difference for people to be able to have a certified training that goes alongside their role. Again, we've never really seen this in PMO, which is why we decided to go down this route, which was actually to focus on the individual rather than how to go and set up a PMO, which seemed to be where the market, the vast majority of the market had focused on, is what's the PMO and how do we set one up? And actually the real learning is about the people that are in this PMO and making it happen. And that's why the focus has been very much on the individual roles. Again, apologies if you saw the session the other day, but it's a really nice graphic that we put together a few years ago now. But it really does help people try to put themselves in the right area in terms of, who are you as a PMO professional? So we have those right from the, come entry level, coming into project management for the first time, even coming into work for the first time, is that supporting role around the PMOs. And then as you become more experienced, you're moving into that kind of project and program supporting role, and then moving on to that role where you're actually providing more guidance, that you're giving more advice, that you're doing that critical friend type role, that kind of where you really do need the experience from working in projects and programs for a number of years to be able to start to guide the organization and your project managers and program managers in certain aspects of what it is they do. And then we've started to see, look, again, this is just in the last 20 years, this is where the role has started to, evolve too, which is more of the portfolio management. Again, didn't exist for a lot of organizations because a lot of organizations didn't have enough projects to warrant it. Now we're seeing that the way that the whole project management space and change happening in organizations is that a lot more organizations doing a lot more projects, and that's why portfolio management has started to become one of those areas which are becoming big news. So for PMO people, you've got those two options. Again, you've got that portfolio supporting role, but you've also got that portfolio guidance role. That's when you're starting to get to that point where you're not only looking at your PPM experience, as you're building up, but as we get to that portfolio level, you're getting closer and closer to working at the kind of strategic and strategy development, strategy implementation, the kind of portfolio, the glue between the strategy and at senior level and the delivery that's happening within the organization. That needs the business experience. And again, it's exciting times for people that have been around this space for a number of years, have been able to see, a really nice career path opening up, which is really exciting for people that perhaps are coming into this today for the first time and thinking, where can I go with this? You can go into lots of different places, and just going up through this level is just one of them. So So interesting times, and again, it says evolving, and it will continue to evolve. PMOs today, we hinted at it before when I showed you that picture of a team of people that had got together at one of the project hacks. Hopefully you've seen some of the things we've been doing around Project Hack, and with the organisation that Martin Paver has called Projecting Success. They are focused on project data analytics and AI, specifically within the project management space. So what we are obviously interested in from a professional body point of view, and we see it as our job, is that we need to understand what's happening in this space and start to think about, well, what's the realities for people, both now and also potentially what's been happening in the future. So where we are right now, in terms of conversations around this, we're always going to get some people that want to be ahead of the curve. And there'll always be those people. And some of those people are already starting to, get involved in their organizations and make this stuff happen. We've got some people that are starting to feel their way a little bit, and they're getting involved in something called the Project Hacks. Got some videos out the other week because we were doing one in Manchester, and you get a feel for that. So people starting to get curious about that, and for are quite having a look at this and see what it's about. And then we've got a great big vast amount of people that are unaware, or too scared, or dismissive, or I don't understand this at all, and I don't think it's going to be something that's going to affect our organisation. We've got a big amount of people, PMO people on that side, that need help. So we did a session just before the conference, day before the conference, where I think this stat was something like 68% of people in the room had not used any kind of AI, either in their home or their work life to date. Which is an interesting one, because I think partially it's because you may not recognize that there are some AI elements in some of the stuff that you are already using. I think what most people thought about was, I'm not using some of the things that I'm seeing about, on TVs or on the news. So one of the things that people are looking at right now in terms of starting to engage a little bit more is understanding things like ChatGPT, because it has made leaps and bounds from where it was just over, I think it's probably about 8 months, something like that, has been a massive change. And I'll show you just something from an insight on that. But the other thing that had caught the imagination of PMO people was because they've had access to things like Office 365, which gave them access to things like the Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI. It's that kind of suite of things that's allowed them to, it feels a little bit more familiar. So that has started to get people thinking about things like RPA, which again is Power Automate, which is about automating parts of your process. ChatGPT we talked about, but again, there's different kind of levels. And again, for people that are testing and trying this stuff out, we know that some of them have decided to go down the apprenticeship route, of which again, you can find out about that. If you're finding in your organization that there's chatter about this, there is something available for PMO people that are right at this entry level. There is an apprenticeship that you can do, which is alongside your job. It's not an apprenticeship where you're, just left school. It's not one of those. It's a business apprenticeship, and that's a way into it, or starting to understand the very basic elements of what this kind of stuff is. People are concerned, and mainly that's because it's a lack of education and understanding. And we're here, focusing on for the next few months. We've already started to pull some things together after our last hack, and how can we start to help people make those tentative, or what we call those baby steps, as to where this stuff's going in the future. But just coming back to the ChatGPT thing, we asked people, had you even used it? Have you even thought about it? Do you even know what it can do? We had this session before the conference where we split the room into two, and one side of the room had to look at onboarding processes. Yeah? So we just took an example, an onboarding process for your organization to bring in new project people into your organization. One side of the room did it collectively on tables, using their, the knowledge, their experience, all that kind of stuff, as to what your onboarding process might include. The other half of the room quickly downloaded ChatGPT, some of them reluctantly, and started to ask ChatGPT, which is a natural processing language tool, which allows you to ask it a question and it'll give you some answers. Okay, so the other half of the room did that. The interesting thing about it is that with anything like this, it also, I think the key learning was not so much what ChatGPT gave back to them. It gave us a very quick lesson, which is we need to be able to learn and ask questions, which, you know, again, is just one of those things where when you get people in the room, it's like, who knew? We were all waiting to see what wonderful insights this artificial intelligence was going to give to us around onboarding processes, which incidentally, it did, because we asked the question, okay, so what will the onboarding process look like in the year 2050? Yeah, so we wanted to understand where it could be going, not based on, you know, how we onboard today, for example. One of the other things, you know, we often get is like, for example, here, it's just giving the five most important things that should be in a PMO charter. And there it is. It gives me a starter for 10. If I'm going to be working on a process document, or I need to start to think about, I'm doing a presentation, I can do things like, I've got a paragraph that I want to put, can I get the bullet points out of this, or what's this really short and succinct way of writing this? I can give it to ChatGPT, it can give it back to me. It's just about starting to play with it and starting to understand where we might be able to apply aspects of this. And yes, you know, there's all that data and security concerns and things like that, but we left a goal at the end of the day. And I think, again, it was Eileen's example, you know, if nothing else, you can just download it and ask it, I've got these things in the cupboard, what can I have for tea tonight or dinner? What can I have for dinner tonight based on these ingredients? And it gave it back to you. It's just about being able to understand a little bit more about what some of this tech is, rather than saying, you know, I'm really dismissive about it. That's where we are right now. And these guys were the ones that just thought, yeah, you know, I want to dip my toe into this and to see what it's all about. So at least I'm at a point where, and certainly within the PMO, somebody within the business at some point is going to come and ask you, what should we be doing about some of this kind of AI technology? What's your opinion about it? Better to be from an informed point of view, you know, rather than saying no clue. So that's where we are right now. We've got a lot more to come around that area. Back to PMOs today then. So the thing that we often forget about, because we look at the wonderful things like AI, and it's going to be amazing, is the basics. And actually, the PMO is there to help the organisations mature in some of those key areas that we know makes projects sink or swim. And again, it's for House of PMO is making sure you're doing the basic stuff as well as some of the more shiny, interesting, you know, new things. So for us, the basics have been pulled out as these, which is around business case, planning, risk management, resource management, and benefits management. Does anybody disagree? Is anything missing? What would you class as being the basics that's not there? But these are the things that we have recognised as being, this is where PMOs often have challenges. We know organisations have challenges around some of these things. What do we need to know about them? Is it's not, you know, we don't do training. We're not providing training courses. We're trying pockets of knowledge that other people have been doing in these core areas, that we can take ideas and think, you know what, that company over there had a really great idea into how they could do benefits mapping. Let's share that idea with you. And what do you think? And could you utilize that? That's what we're all about. So you've got a lot of things already to go at. You know, maybe the other one on the list could have been things like, you know, governance, but, you know, but all of them are already there in the members library. And we carry on because we know a lot of these subjects continue to evolve, continue to change, something else comes in. And this is a classic one as well, which is delivery methods. I don't think anybody of us can argue just the change that we've probably seen in the last, what, I think we started doing stuff around agile probably about, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. And since that time, we've had things like is pure agile supporting that. There's the whole range of tools and methods and processes and things that go with that. But actually, we're still doing waterfall, and we've got this now. We've got this hybrid world going on, and then we've got this enterprise level agility stuff that has come in, and then now we're talking products and DevOps. Who knows where we'll be in 2 years' time, 5 years' time? What's going to come down and impact us in terms of the PMO? What do we need to know about? And what do we continue to, you know, let's find out what other PMO people, the ones that are perhaps ahead of the curve, what they've been doing. Let's learn from them. Let's share that with you. And then you become informed. And because you never know when this kind of stuff's going to start to impact your role. So, again, we're always looking for making sure that the areas that are coming down the line, the complaints that we hear from people, the challenges that we get from PMO people, oh, we've just been asked to do this, it's going to be a nightmare because X, Y, and Z. Well, actually, we've already started to do some thinking around that, and why don't you have a look at this? That's how it all works. It's you know, you just never know, but you've been guaranteed there'll be somebody somewhere that has done it before you, and it will be someone. If it's not in our library, you can bet that we'll be doing a session. And we can do sessions, events, we're doing them all the time, and at least once a week, so you can have a look at the events calendar. And of course, a lot of the new stuff we do, you know, is bringing thoughts and different thinking together. This is the conference. We've obviously just had one in London. We've got the one coming up in Edinburgh that we're really looking forward to. Again, different agenda, different people, different, you know, stories to share. And again, that's what it's all about. What are other people doing? And let's just try and take that learning from people. We're also making sure that we're scanning the horizon all the time in terms of what trend stuff. So this was late 2022. We're now in 2023, what, 7 months in. This is, you know, what we said we were going to be doing in the late 2022. I think we're not a million miles out so far. And interestingly, when you go back and look at you can have a look at some of the previous trends, by the way. Just go onto the members library, type in PMO trends. It'll give you them going backwards for the last, I think it's 5 years we've been doing them. We're not a million miles away. It'd be interesting to see what 2024 is going to bring to us. But again, you know, it's stuff that's if you'd seen this these trends back at the kind of 2010 mark, you would have been like, no way. So it's interesting just how quickly we've moved on. So 2024 seems a lifetime away. You're joking, aren't you? Just around the corner. So why do we exist? We're coming up to the last slide. So why do we exist? Ultimately, there is a lot to learn. If anybody disagrees with that, please let us know. It's just, I think it's one of the things that people, sometimes it feels like there's too much. There's no one piece of best practice. It is coming from all over the place for us. You know, we're not, there's that many different ways of delivering projects, programs, portfolios. There's that many different ways of strategy being set, different ways of managing a portfolio. There's different ways of doing risk management, benefits. There's just lots of different ways. And it is about being able to, as a true professional in PMO, is being able to understand what is out there, taking the best bits, making the bits work for where you're working right now. And, you know, that is what it's all about, and which is why you have to have quite a kind of a wide repertoire of what's involved in the day-to-day roles, and which is why it makes it exciting and, you know, keeps the old brain matter going. PMOs are not unique and are not unique. We have this all the time, but people are saying, you know, but our PMO is very much for this organization and therefore it can't be replicated. No, it can't, but there are aspects of PMO which are not unique. We're all doing the same thing, which is supporting the successful delivery of projects, programs, and portfolios. How we choose to do that may be unique. It might be a combination that makes it unique of different things we're doing. But there are basics there of which things can be built. Some things become mandated, some things are not. You know, there are different ways in which we make and what unique and not unique really means. We say that it's unique, it means that it's almost like it can't be learned. And it can, but it's about the combination. The learning comes from how we put these pieces together like the jigsaw. And again, the answers do lie in the collective knowledge. It doesn't lie in one person that stands there and says, I know everything there is to know about PMOs and this is the way forward. It comes from people that are doing this. They're doing it every day. They're doing the trial and error that we need. They're testing things out. They are repeatedly doing certain processes. They are continuously improving on stuff they're doing. It comes from people that are doing it day in, day out. It gives us that, you know, the insights that we're getting. We know that it's based on things that are working, that are not working, you know, rather than it coming from one person's view of the world. And that's what we'll continue to do. That's what the House of PMO is all about. So that is your whistle-stop tour today of just a reminder about House of PMO. We don't do it often enough, and but also just to give you a little insight of where PMOs are today in the wider community and in the wider world. That's some of the things that people are focusing on and doing. that's it. Any questions, Eileen, that we need to be aware of, or are we done for the day?
There's nothing in chat that I haven't dealt with, I don't think. There's a couple of suggestions, definitely we're going to go through them, and there's a couple of suggestions I want to think about, but we've been discussing all kinds of different things in chat, so worth a read.
Excellent. So we've got another couple of events coming up next week. We've got anybody who didn't come to the conference that wants to get an insight into, what was discussed, what were some of the hot things that came out of it. Join us. I love those sessions. I tend to share basically about 10 different aspects of it, and to give you a flavour and bring you up to date with what's going on. There's always some really interesting little slides to have a look at and things like that. So that's next week. We're also back with another resource management session. Go and have a look at the events calendar. Get yourself signed up. Have a brilliant rest of your day. Lovely to have you with us again today, and take care for now. It was recorded, so if you do want to listen to it back, it'll be in the members library. So please, if you're not already a signed up member, consider joining up today. Take a look at the website. Thanks everybody. Take care.
Bye guys.